Nagamma returned to Arunachala within 3 months, as she could not bear to be separated from Bhagavan any longer. She had to stay in town since there were no residential places near the ashram, and ladies weren't allowed to stay in the ashram after sunset. Fortunately, she was able to rent a house next to Echamal, who used to eat only after serving Bhagavan first. Living next to this saintly woman proved to be a great satsang for Nagamma, who was encouraged by Echamal to speak without restraint with Bhagavan. In fact, Echamal specifically told her that when she spoke to Bhagavan, she should ask for nothing less than self-realization. One day, after she prostrated before Bhagavan, she prayed with a trembling voice, "Bhagavan, please help me attain mukti," liberation. Bhagavan, the embodiment of compassion, turned to her and nodded his head in agreement. This reaction of Bhagavan's was very strange, as his usual response to this question would be a counter question like, "Who wants mukti? Who is asking this question?" Or else he would just remain in silence. When Nagamma told Echamal about this, Echamal commented, "What a fortunate lady you are. Bhagavan has already given you abhyaham, protection." Nagamma asked her what she meant by that, and Echamal explained that from then on there would be no more births or deaths for Nagamma. She said, "Bhagavan has taken over you. You have nothing to fear, and that is liberation." Bhagavan focused all of his attention on Nagamma, and like a good student, she plunged into Bhagavan's teaching of self-inquiry. She was occasionally able to go deep into meditation, but she was also distracted by thoughts. She said, "Particularly when seated in front of Bhagavan with closed eyes and meditating, these thoughts would cloud me, and when I opened my eyes, Bhagavan would be focusing his attention on me. Bhagavan scared all my thoughts away from me." Nagamma was a gifted poet and a talented writer. In those days, women did not approach Bhagavan and converse freely with him, though Bhagavan himself did not impose any such restrictions. Things became more difficult on crowded days. On such days, Nagamma would send a note to Bhagavan seeking clarification about her occasional doubts regarding meditation. Bhagavan would admonish her, saying, "Why do you take notice of these doubts? By noticing them, you strengthen them. Instead, plunge within." In her poetic language, Nagamma would say, "Every time Bhagavan looked at me and enriched my inner striving, he steadied it without any frills. It was like water flowing into dry land, making it flower and blossom. My spiritual life was like that." Suri Nagamma herself narrated the following incident relating to the Amrita Nadi, or the immortal nerve, the nerve that has been extolled by yogic texts and the Hindu scriptures as being similar to the Kundalini. In 1942, a Tamil scholar had a lengthy and detailed discussion with Bhagavan on the Amrita Nadi, believed to be the nerve associated with self-realization. Bhagavan showed interest in the discussion and answered all the pundits' questions, giving a detailed description of the functions of the Amrita Nadi. Nagamma felt out of place as she did not know anything of the subject matter. After the pundit left, she approached Bhagavan and began to ask him about what was discussed. Before she can complete her sentence, Bhagavan asked, "Why do you worry about all this?" "But Bhagavan, you have been discussing this for 4 days, so I thought I should also learn something about it from you." And Bhagavan answered, "The Pandit was asking me what is written in the scriptures, and I was giving him suitable replies. Why do you bother about all that? It is enough if you look into yourself as to who you are." Saying this, Bhagavan smiled compassionately at her. After another 2 days or so, there was once again another dialogue on the same subject. This time, Bhagavan said that it was only a notion, a mere concept. Nagamma intervened to ask whether all matters relating to the Amrita Nadi were also only concepts. Bhagavan replied emphatically, "Yes, what else is it? Is it not a mere notion? If the body itself is a notion, will that not be a notion as well?" Bhagavan then looked at Nagamma with great kindness. All her doubts were laid to rest. In narrating this incident, Nagamma wanted to make known how important it is to go back to the source when spiritual doubts arise. Bhagavan understood that each devotee had his or her own inborn gift and took this into consideration when nurturing a seeker. The inborn nature of the individual is not an obstacle to spiritual sadhana. Only the countless thoughts are. Suri Nagamma's gift was that of a poet and a writer. So Bhagavan offered her spiritual guidance based on this fact. When Suri Nagamma realized that Bhagavan was her guru, verses and songs and poems flowed spontaneously. Initially, she felt rather shy to present her writings before Bhagavan. However, when another Telugu lady began singing these verses to Bhagavan, he appreciated them immensely. Hearing from an attendant that Bhagavan had received the verses positively, Nagamma felt free to place a few more verses before Bhagavan. Bhagavan gave a welcoming smile and said, "There are 4 verses written in the form of a prayer to me. The second verse is amusing. After I left Skanda Ashram and settled down here, I had no monkeys to serve me. Nagamma pleads with me, saying, 'Why don't you accept my mind that is like a monkey to serve you? Tie it down or chasten it, but see to it that it does service to you.'" That is the idea behind the verse. In Shivananda Lahari, Adi Shankara says something similar. He says, "O Shiva, you are a bhikshu, a beggar. Why not tie down my monkey mind to a stick and go about begging? You will get alms in abundance." Bhagavan then talked about a great Telugu scholar who had visited the ashram and had told Bhagavan that he had read several spiritual articles by Nagamma in various Telugu journals. Bhagavan told the scholar that Nagamma was imparting spiritual knowledge to the public in the form of articles to magazines, journals, and newspapers. What wonderful support he gave Nagamma. One day when Bhagavan was in the hall, he heard someone observe that there was no one to take care of the Telugu manuscripts. Bhagavan at once suggested that Nagamma, who was proficient in the language, would be able to write down the material. A large bound notebook arrived, and Bhagavan himself gave it to Nagamma. From that day on, she became the official writer, copier, and custodian of all the writings in Telugu.